So inside of my folder, I have an images folder. And inside the images folder, you'll see that I have the images for my room. And if I double click one of them, you'll see that my little video plays back. You can't see the video though. The light's on. There we go. All right, so this is my video from the other class, the Monday, Wednesday class. And you'll see that it gets all the way to the end, and then I get this box that pops up that says something about can't read image file, blah, 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 blah. That image file is number 19 or 119. For some reason, it didn't render frame 119. So what I'd need to do is go into Maya, go back to my start frame in my render settings and say, hey, start rendering at frame 119 and do all the way to 120. And some of yours, you might have to start it off at frame 50 and go to 120 if it stopped. So this is one of the nice things about rendering in a sequence is that if it does stop halfway through, we can just pick it up and do the rest of it. If this was rendered right to a video file, like an actual QuickTime movie, if it got halfway through and stopped, we have to start the whole process over again from the beginning. Okay? So there's what I have so far. Gorgeous. All right, so now we need to get that into an actual movie file so that we can show it to other people. So I know that in this case, 119 isn't going to import, so I'm just going to delete 119 because I don't want to screw up After Effects. Now, what I would do before I go on to the next step is I would make sure I have all my files. I have all the way to 120. For this lecture, though, it doesn't matter because the process is still going to be the same. I'm going to show you how we can take this and make it into an actual movie. So we use After Effects as our way to make a movie. Yes, ma'am.
When I came in today, because I had been rendering.
If we choose name dot, where is it? There it is. Name dot number, this one, this will render out the name dot number, and what Windows thinks is that's your file extension. Okay, so on a Windows machine, it uses the .exr or .taf or .jpeg as a what kind of file is this? Yours don't have that, so it doesn't know what to do. Okay. So we just have to make sure that it's labeled with this one or rename each one. Yeah. And it's a horrible thing. And back in the day, we would have 100 files, 200 files, and if you misname them, it's usually quicker just to go through and rename each one horribly than to have to do that. Okay. And that's where we got creative with, you know, finding scripts online, finding utilities, finding other ways to grab all these files and rename them to this file extension. I don't know if I have it on here. I don't. Oops. If I spell it right, I might. No. There's a tool called Bulk Rename Utility. It's like the best renaming utility ever. It is like really overwhelming. It's kind of like Maya's interface. That's what the interface looks like for Bulk Rename Utility. So you open up your files and it's just like all this stuff. But all of these here allow you to very, very quickly rename your stuff. You don't use all of them. So let's say you had 100 pictures of you at the beach, and instead of having DSCF, whatever that extension is, 0001, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could grab all those images, and then in here say I want to rename, wherever it is, rename, name, there it is, beach, whatever. And then you could even append certain things like the time it was taken or the date it was taken or whatever. So it's very handy and it's very quick. It's like lightning fast. So in some instances we would actually use a tool like that to do it. All right. So After Effects is now opened. I get an error. So what we need to do is we need to bring our footage into After Effects. So I'm going to show this process very quickly just so you can just see the overall, and then I'm going to step through it a little bit slower, okay? So as always, we bring our footage in. I go and find my footage. I drop it into a composition. There's my footage. I make a movie. I tell it that I want it to be a QuickTime. I want this to be a H.264. I make sure I name it. And then I hit the render button in here, and this should be pretty lightning quick. That's how fast that blue is just going right across it. And that's all we have to do in After Effects. Okay, that's all we have to do for this project in After Effects, to take something we've rendered and make it into a QuickTime movie. Okay. Now, if this was some bigger production, like on our next assignment, we're going to go into more of a layering process where we're going to do more work in After Effects to kind of finish the piece a little bit nicer. Your skills in After Effects as far as motion graphics aren't terribly important at this stage, but if you needed to, let's say, adjust your color, we could go into like exposure and we could adjust our coloring. So I can pull the exposure up. Or I could go and adjust my hue and saturation and maybe adjust the overall hue of the image, or maybe pull the saturation down, or maybe pull the lightness up, or whatever. Okay, so we can still tweak this afterwards, which is great because we want the ability to customize this as to what we want to look like. You typically hardly ever, very rarely would ever just render something out and then make it into a movie and call it a finished piece. There's always this level of finishing, what they call it, finishing, that goes into making it look complete. Okay. All right, so now let me step back and do this a bit slower just so you can see all those steps again. All right, so the first thing, we need to bring footage into After Effects. So we can hit Control-I. You can double click in this window, or you can just go to File, Import, File. Okay. Now, here's one mistake that usually people make, is they try to grab all their files. Okay, and when you grab all of your files, what happens is After Effects treats each one of these files as an individual piece, and they're not individual pieces. These files are part of a big movie. Okay, they're all my frames. So I click on one single file, and then I make sure that this button is checked. Open EXR sequence. So After Effects registers that we have a sequence. It knows, hey, this is not just a file, this is a whole sequence. All of these things are kind of together. So if I click on this one, I make sure that's checked, I hit import, it'll bring this in as a sequence. And you can tell it's a sequence because of the icon. Do you see how that picture there is not just one picture, it's multiple pictures, okay? So that way it tells us it's a sequence. Also, if you look at the numbering on this, it says 1 through 120. I'm actually surprised it says 120 because I didn't have 19 or 120. I'll go with it though. So what I'm going to do is then take this, and I need to drop this into my composition. So this is like the easiest part. You drag this into your work area, you drag it onto the timeline, or you drag it onto this little button that says composition. Any three ways work, okay? We're just dragging it into our comp or our work area. If we wanted to, we could click and drag and play this, or hit the space bar and that would also play it. But by this time, typically we've already seen what the video looks like. We've already seen the footage, so it's not like we are going to be surprised at all. All right, so then we just export it out. We have the actual movie, it's in our layer, so then we would just go to File, Export, and then add it to the render queue. Okay, so once it's in the render queue, this is very similar to Maya's render settings. Okay, so in Maya we told it, hey, I have a 3D scene, I want to take it out and I want to make images out of that. So that's what it's saying. Now we have images, we want to make that into a movie. So a bunch of stuff that's inside here we don't need to touch. People usually get tripped up on this. This word lossless is in blue. That's a clickable item, so we click the word lossless.
Is that compression?
Lossless is compression, okay? That's exactly what it stands for, is how much of the original image are you losing. So as lossless, typically you're going to lose something. Lose nothing. Loss E, you would lose something. So with any one of these formats, not any one, most of these formats here that we would make a movie, you're going to lose something in there. Okay, no movie format is perfect and going to capture every single piece of data that's in there. Have you ever had a gradient that you've drawn out in Photoshop or Illustrator and then you go print it and it looks horrible?
Yeah.
Right, because the printer and the computer are talking different languages and they just, the printer does not have the ability to draw that out, right? So the same thing here. When we save this to a QuickTime, it can't save every single piece of information. So what it does is it tries to find the best way to save it and still maintain what it looked like originally. All right. So we're going to choose QuickTime from this menu. From the Format menu, we choose QuickTime. And this is going to be across the board every time we do something like this. We're going to click on loss list, we're going to click on the format, and we're going to choose QuickTime from that menu. And then this gives us a QuickTime file. A QuickTime file is a .mov file, okay? Within the MOV file format, we have a bunch of different options that we can choose from there. So over here on the right, it says Format Options. So I'm going to click on Format Options. From this list, oops, too big. From this list, we have a codec. And codec stands for compressor decompressor. So how are you compressing this file so it's not an enormous file size? And then how are you decompressing it? Okay, that's what that codec means. And these are all different ways that we could create a video with different compressions. So one of my clients, they have an old TV. It's like, I don't know, 5 years old or something. And they want to be able to play loopable movies on their TV. So that TV this is how old it is. It needs a format that's like this, like 320 by 240, and it needs it to be motion JPEG, and it's like a ridiculous format size. And so when I go into making movies, I have to pick that specific one. Now for all of these, we're picking H.264, okay? That H.264 gives us the best quality and the lowest file size. It's just a good balance of both of those. If we chose something like animation, our picture is going to look good, but our file size is going to be like 2 gigs for our video, okay? So don't pick animation, and usually if you turn something in, I can tell this is animation because you have 4 seconds of video and it's 2 gigs, and that should not happen. So always H.264 for what we're doing. Oops, I picked the wrong one. Okay, the rest of these are defaulted fine. The quality is all the way up. We don't have to worry about the rest of the stuff, so we hit OK. Yes, ma'am. All right, so we have other things we could also set in here. If we had audio, we could have audio. If we had resize it or crop it, we could also resize it or crop it. There's nothing else in here. All we do, QuickTime, H.264. Those are only 2 options that we need to adjust. Okay. Once we have that, then we're going to click on this other area. Now here, mine already says Sarcona Miniroom. It may say not yet set or untitled or whatever. You click on that blue spot because you need to rename it. Okay? And I put my files, I like to keep my files that I save right inside of my project folder. So my project was Miniroom, I throw it inside the movies folder, and I always title it my last name underscore what the project is. Sarcona underscore Miniroom inside my movies folder. All right. So once I have that saved, sure, then I have to click the render button inside of After Effects. So once I've given it a name, once I've picked my compressor, then I can hit the render button on the far right. And if we have our audio turned up, we'll get that little chiming sound. And that means that we're all done. Now mine actually isn't done because I accidentally hit cancel because I was being clumsy with my fingers. Yes, render. And I will not hit any keyboard keys. Sometimes there is an issue with VLC or with QuickTime not playing things, so we'll tweak that or look at that in a minute. All right, so once you're done in After Effects, you can close it. We haven't done anything that's groundbreaking, earth-shattering that we need to save what we've done. I just close After Effects and don't save any of the stuff right there because I didn't do anything. I just made my movie. I brought it in, made my movie, and that was it. All right, and then when you turn your stuff in, everything you turn in is going to go to the Z drive in 2510, Tuesday, Thursday, Miniroom turn-in. And for this project, you're just dropping in your movie. That's all you're doing. So I'd find my movie, 2510, work, there, movies, and drop it in. Now this does not let you change anything. So if you had misnamed your file, you can't rename your file afterwards. Okay, so make sure it's named correctly before you drop stuff into that folder. Whose was it? Chandi's? Yours wasn't working?
No.
Oh, yours is working. All right, drop yours into that folder. Let me see if I can get it to play. Maybe it's just that computer. Now, there could be an issue too. Like, if I would have kept frame 119 inside that list, it could have gotten all the way to 119 and said, whoa, I don't know what that is, and then just crap out, okay? So it is possible that you had one bad file in there that After Effects didn't like, and it just didn't render the entire thing. So,
But it plays it in After Effects.